Welcome everyone to the latest in the Flexible Space Association's series of webinars. I'm Jane Sartin, I'm the Executive Director of the Flexible Space Association. We're looking this time at the topic of whether the pandemic will drive more commercial landlords into flexible workspace. And I'll just invite the two of our three presenters to introduce themselves and say a little about where they're from. Andrew.
Hi everyone, Andrew Butterworth. So I'm the Commercial Director for Bruntwood Works. We're a property developer based in the North and Midlands. So we have about 120 office buildings across 4 cities, Birmingham, Liverpool, Leeds and Manchester. And we operate both serviced, flex and leased space along with a reasonable retail portfolio.
Okay, thank you. And Jonny?
Yeah, hi, my name's Jonny Rosenblatt. I'm the co-founder of Spacemade, which is an operational infrastructure partner that enables landlords to deliver flexible space directly to their customer. My business partner, Dan Silverman, and I set up the business when we kind of saw that landlords were increasingly looking to deliver their own flexible solution to tenants, but didn't necessarily know how to do it. So we sort of built this model where we really kind of turn those landlords into operators and give them full transparency of the operation. We basically sit as an extension of the landlord's team and we deliver the entire suite of services, so branding, feasibility, technological expertise, right through to marketing and selling, and then eventually operating the space. We do a kind of bespoke approach to each building, and despite relatively recent launch, I've been in the flexible space for about a decade, having previously founded and then sold Headspace Group, which I sold at the end of 2017. And the current operation operates, at the moment, we're operating about 100,000 square feet across 3 UK cities, which is looking likely to double, hopefully, by the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to check that Justin hasn't joined us because I can see that he's trying to on our screen. Not yet. Okay, let's start. I think you sort of start exploring with how COVID might change the way that we use office space, particularly around leases. Has it changed leases? Do you think that the people who run flexible spaces is going to remain the case? And how have leases changed? What's your forecast? Andrew, can we start with you on that topic?
Yeah, sure. So what we're seeing and what we're hearing from our customers in our markets is that I think when we went into the lockdown, the home working experiment seemed to be well embraced. It worked well for most of our customers and internally for our colleagues. But over the last 4 to 6 weeks, probably we're finding there's a general desire for people to return to the office. We're not seeing occupancy necessarily increase significantly. We're at about 20 to 25% across most of our estate. As I say, that's service space, flex space, and leased. But we think that is on the upward trajectory, and we're seeing occupancy week by week slowly increasing. So our sort of view on it is that home working will become more part of the sort of stable of offer in terms of how people operate and work going forward. And in terms of the space that they then occupy within the offices, our view is that over time people will start to look at that, be more thoughtful about how they use the space, look at how they redesign the offices. So they effectively, a lot of offices had start to cram a lot of people into crowded spaces. So we think people will start to respace plan, be more generous in terms of the amount of space they provide to their colleagues, provide more space for collaboration, breakout. And then in terms of us as a landlord and developer, we'll be looking more, as we have done over the last sort of 5 years, in terms of how we design and develop our sort of communal spaces and continue to grow and evolve that offer. So we'll be having more wellness facilities, improve the basic offer in terms of showers, bikes, changing facilities, continue to provide more services into our buildings. So we encourage and bring a number of different providers into our spaces who will provide services for our customers. So we have hairdressers, barbers, physios, beauticians, all that come and pop up and use our space. We bring a variety of food and beverage providers in. So again, that whole wider provision in terms of what customers can expect and sort of become now more the norm. So again, we'll continue to look at that, continue to take feedback from our customers, and continue to evolve and develop our offer.
Okay, thank you. And Jonny, on that introductory point, how do you think it's going to COVID will change office space and the forecast and implication for leases?
Yeah, look, I think it's important not to get sort of too bogged down in, I suppose, an element of hysteria around the impact that COVID will have. Like, clearly, it is having, certainly short term, it's having a major impact. And I think long term it will change the way we use space, but I think that was already happening prior to March. I think you know, for a lot of occupiers, the sort of traditional lease was starting to look pretty cumbersome, actually, and pretty onerous for many occupiers. I think flexibility has been pushing up the agenda for many occupiers and many users of space over the last few years anyway. And I think the kind of flexible workspace market and operators have been sort of adhering to that and listening to it. So I think that shift is sort of going to be accelerated rather than it being something totally new. Where I think there'll be sort of significant changes that we're probably not going to see. I think quite clearly we're not going to see 100% of the workforce in the office 5 days a week. Certainly not for the short term. Probably not for the medium and the long term either. I think that changes, and I think the sort of usage of a single workspace by a company is going to become less of a feature and less of a focus, and there will be some evolution into something slightly more, slightly less centralized. You know, and I think to Andrew's point, the truth is that most buildings need to have a reason beyond going to work for tenants to come in and use it. So you need to make a destination in the building. There needs to be a reason to come in that is more than, you know, come and sit at my desk and check my emails, because we all now know that we can do that quite comfortably at home. So I think, you know, I think the writing was always a bit on the wall for leases, and I think flexibility has been an important point. So I see that evolution happening, and I see tenants wanting to make use of a decentralized sort of system of spaces, a network of spaces that can enable them to be flexible in when they use space, how they use space, and where they really want to go and work, and you know, focus on sort of reutilization of the space as well. So I see changes coming, but I think that's something that's been coming anyway. This has only really sort of accelerated the shift.
Okay. Thank you. I should just say, if anyone watching wants to add in questions themselves, use the chat facility that should be on your screen, and we'll try and pick those up as we go along as well. So commercial rent collection is down, clearly. Does this mean that commercial landlords will have to reuse their space, and is that a threat or an opportunity for flexible space operators? Andrew, come back to you on that first.
So at the moment for us and for our business, whilst rent collection is down since we went into this crisis, we've always had a really strong focus on our customers. We've got real high engagement. We know the majority of our customers pretty intimately. And therefore, what we've been doing is really working with them and understanding those that really are in most need of support. So whilst collection's down, we've worked with customers and a number have paid rent on time, and those that require support, we've supported through rental deferment and other measures. So we, as a consequence of that, what we haven't seen is any increase in customer defaults, and we haven't seen any increase in the number of determinations that we did, over and above what we've normally expect in our historic run rate. So we're not losing more customers as a consequence of that yet. That may come, but we're doing our best to try and work and support those customers. So for us, it's a case of, if we do get more space coming back in our buildings, we, as I said before, we'll look at that. It will present us with opportunities maybe to repurpose some of the space, be thoughtful about the types of product, services, and use of that space. And we'll just continue to, I think, as Jonny said, accelerate maybe the speed at which we evolve and improve our offer for our customers. So for us, I think there's opportunities that will come. And I think in terms of the wider market, what we're seeing is, most landlord developers have wanted to have an increased mix of flex space within their properties, within their portfolio. How they go about getting that is, there's a variety of different ways to achieve that. Jonny's model is obviously one way. There's a number of different solutions there. So I think that's coming, and that will just continue to happen. I think where the flexible operators really stand ahead of the competition is that I do see a lot of developers and landlords trying to provide flex space themselves, and they're just not, in my opinion, necessarily the best place to deliver that and provide that. So those that try and do that themselves through not necessarily serviced offer, but maybe through more of a managed offer, I think it can at times feel a bit superficial and actually not delivering ultimately what the customer wants when they're looking for total flex space. So I think those landlord developers will continue just need to stand back and look at how they think about providing flex space within their portfolio mix.
Okay, thank you. Justin, can I just check if you are there?
I am. Hello,
Great.
Everyone.
Okay,
We love
welcome. Right, we'll just give you a second. Jonny, do you want to just respond to that question, then we'll catch up with Justin in a minute?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I think there is clearly, there's been a short-term impact on rental collections. Everyone has felt it, but I think it's those that adapt quickest that are most likely to sort of find a way around to navigating this change. I think our sense from most tenants across our buildings is that they do want to come back, or if they're not back already, everyone's putting in place their own sort of strategy to come back. But there is not this seismic shift to home working only. I think the desire and the need to be in the office remains important. I think the point though is that we as providers of workspace, whether you're a landlord, whether you're an operator, however you're engaged in the industry, we need to listen to the changing needs of tenants and end users. I think truth is flexible workspace operators have seen this a long time ago, right? We all saw this ages ago, this shift towards flexibility, the need for, kind of shared amenity spaces, this sort of different product to this kind of, pate space and passive rent collection that has sort of dominated the market. But I think even that model now needs to adapt further. I think the opportunity that exists now is for flexible providers to develop a product, right? The sort of the individual private office that someone takes on a year's license, that's fine. That does a job, right? But I think moving forward, that needs to be developed further. You need to be able to offer people a network of spaces, because actually they're not always going to come to that one individual office. You need a different offering for sort of, quiet focus work. You need project teams who want to gather and work in a different environment. You need client focus work. You need to be able to present to clients in the right way. You might need an event space one day. You might want to just have a one-on-one focus session with an employee another day. So there are so many different ways of doing it, and the key is maximising the portfolio to be able to offer that to everyone. I think the big question for the property industry, probably, maybe I'm not talking about our flexible workspace industry, but the wider property industry is, always comes back to this question of valuation. It's always been clear that you get as good a covenant as possible, you get as long a lease as possible, and that maximises the overall value of your real estate. That model really needs to shift, in all honesty, because space is being consumed in a very, very different way. And I think really valuers sort of need to get their head around it, and therefore banks, and therefore kind of landlords, more so than ever, because we have to consume space differently. Therefore, we have to value it differently, and we need to value it in the right way. And I've sort of often felt if we can value hotels, then we can value office space based on a revenue perspective. But I think the opportunity here is developing the right products for end users, beyond sort of what we know today, and making sure that customers have the space that they want to use, not necessarily the space that we tell them they should be using. And that sort of it has become pretty personal, I think.
Thank you. Yes, the range of facilities. I'm in the office today, which is hopefully obvious. But I've been able to move into a different room to do this webinar because there are lots of facilities within the area. So it is having that range of options, isn't it, that you wouldn't have necessarily if you were restricted to a space that you were releasing. Justin, you've joined at a really good time because we're about to move on to particularly the use of technology. So I don't know, perhaps you could introduce yourself and perhaps if there's anything you particularly want to add on the topics that we've been talking about, but then maybe moving on to how people are using technology in spaces, particularly in the current times.
So, hello everyone, sorry I'm late, I had technology problems. There you go, working from home. Justin Harley, Director of Yardi for FlexSpace. I've had the privilege of being in the FlexSpace industry for far too long now, 20 years, and I suppose one of the things that I would say the last 4 months has been extraordinary actually, and there's a lot said about what's going to happen with the office space and is it dead? I think the bad one is dead. I think one thing that is for sure is that human behaviour has changed for good. And I really echo Jonny's statement, so Andrew, I missed some of yours. But in terms of focusing on the customer, because one thing's for sure is that customers are going to demand more and more flexibility. I think the industry is well positioned because it's part of the core product. So I think that and technology will help that. I think things like contactless interfaces will become the norm. So and I think that's a challenge for the FlexSpace sector. I think segments like residential real estate are probably leading the way there, and I think the industry could learn from that. But in terms of the office, I think the bad office, these trends have already been there. It didn't take COVID to make them change. They were underlying anyway. So I just kind of echo what Jonny certainly said, and I missed Andrew at the beginning.
Okay, thank you, Justin. So to move on to that technology question as well to Jonny and Andrew, perhaps starting with Jonny this time, and how do you see the use of technology changing in spaces and promoting its use and keeping up with the demands of people working in flexible workspaces in particular, and what they are wanting in the way of technology?
Yeah, I think the key thing that technology offers from an office perspective is an awareness of availability of space for tenants. So if you have the right technology solution in place that your tenants adopt, and that is a big thing, is getting your tenants to adopt that technology and make use of it. I think as soon as you can share that availability, make use of what space they can book when, in a flexible way, and on a and promote the right spaces at the right time, I think that makes a big difference. And that's sort of I suppose the simplistic kind of process of using technology. Beyond that, there is so much we can do. I think the headline of this webinar is it revolves around what's happening as a result of COVID, and I think there's plenty of technology that enables us to make the office a safe space to work, and we're pretty reliant on technology doing that. Particularly in a shared space, there is for some and not everyone, but right now there remains an uneasiness about going back to the office. I think that the shift is starting to happen. We're seeing a lot more people back in the office now, but for some there is an uneasiness. And actually, if implementing the right technology to tell people when the time is right to come into the office, when numbers of people in space is at a reduced level, and understanding where capacity is, it simplifies the whole process. And I think really the consumption of real estate needs to be as simple as possible. So giving people the right access at the right time, explains them where they can go and work and where they should go and work and where there is suitable space for what they want to do, coupled with when it's safe to actually come in and make sure that actually the workspace has been well maintained, it's well looked after, everyone's well. I think these are really important points. So I think we'll see the adoption of technology increasing. I think really, again, the flexible workspace industry is miles ahead, in all honesty, of a lot of the commercial real estate industry in adopting this kind of technology and being able to use it. So I think the flexible industry is well placed to sort of deliver the right solutions for people and make them feel comfortable and give them the right options to use space as they wish.
Thank you. Andrew, is there anything do you agree with Jonny? Or have you got the different examples maybe of what's happening at Bruntwood?
So yeah, I agree with what Jonny said. I think just to maybe give a couple of different examples. So we've over last couple of years worked hard at trying to develop some of our customer app. So we're very focused on creating a community within our buildings and within the wider portfolio, and by ensuring that customers have the technology to understand on a day-by-day basis what's happening in their buildings, from the ability to book meeting rooms to booking wellness facilities, just any general information about fire alarm tests, etc., and driving more and more applications and information to our app to help make their life easier is one thing that we've been doing over the last few years. And I think the last 4 months as well has just heightened the need to continue to invest in that and make sure that is, from a customer perspective, as informative, as simple to use, and as engaging as it can be. And then just really sort of echo in terms of a couple of things that Jonny was talking about. We've put quite a lot of sensor technology into a number of our buildings now, so customers can understand how space is being used. They can understand where availability is within lounges. So if they're thinking about coming out of their office and going into a lounge space or some quiet working space, they can very easily understand where the availability exists. All our space has been redesigned and re-space planned based on the new environment in which we're working with reduced capacity. So again, the use of technology to allow people to understand how best to navigate the space, and if some of our buildings are full and the spaces are being heavily utilized, and they're available to go and walk across the road to a neighbouring building and use that. So again, the use of technology to help simplify their life is what we're trying to drive.
Thank you. Justin, is there anything you'd like to come back on that or add to?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I'd add, because I think all the points are valid, I think the only thing I add is that I think about trying to cut down as many silos as you can in different systems. I think it's important. So, an experience that is seamless for the customer is really important. And I think that all goes into what Andrew's just saying there is absolutely right. I think there will be some real technological shifts. I think someone said to me internally in Yardi the other day, they said AI is going to, so artificial intelligence is just going to come more and more into everything that we do. And we all know about the investment in artificial intelligence and how that will affect applications that we do every day. And any job that is repetitive and structured, I think over time will become automated. And one of the things someone said to me is that robots don't get viruses. So I think that we'll just see more of that. And I think, you know, it starts with the auto attendant systems, so tools like Alexa. You know, today in people's homes, 30% of homes have an Alexa or a Google Assistant in it. I don't think I've ever seen it in a service office operator or a co-working space. I might be wrong, but it might be there. But, you know, it seems to me that that's the kind of technology that I think people will want to do, A, because it's frictionless and it's contactless. People can speak to it and they can still get to reception, extend meeting room bookings, extend, you know, order new services, and it's easy for people to do. So I think we'll see more of that type of stuff on top of what's there today.
Thank you. So just as we sort of head to wrap up, there's been quite a lot of crystal ball gazing in the industry, sort of predicting what the future is going to be. So it would be just interesting to get views on that, and perhaps including there's been a lot of talk about the sort of hub and spoke situation of companies taking maybe more suburban space in more suburban locations. So it'd be interesting to hear views on that. Jonny, can we start with you on that?
Yeah, I was quite timely because I'm sat in a new space that we've just opened in a suburban location. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting shift. We're seeing across our buildings. We were wary about launching a building during COVID. I can tell you that. But actually, when the time felt right, we decided to push the button on this space, which is in Queen's Park, which is a sort of northwest London suburb, and it has absolutely flown. We opened 2 weeks ago. I mean, we are signing people up every day. I think the shift that's happening is that people, certainly for the foreseeable future, are not necessarily going into the office. It might just be that big employers have simply, and we've heard this across some of our tenants who work at, big technology companies. I mean, the offices are shut till the new year. And even when they do open, they're going to open at 25% capacity. For people sitting around their kitchen table at home, and we've all been doing it, but for people doing that, it's limiting. You can't really work you can't sort of get that sort of collegiate sense of working around other people in the like-minded way. I know I've got 3 kids at home under 6. I mean, it's tough. It's tough doing it. And I think people with flatmates or working around a kitchen table, it's really, really difficult. So they need somewhere to go out. And I think what's interesting is that I actually happened to see a survey the other day, and what that survey seemed to indicate was that 70% of people surveyed want to go back to the office because they miss the collaboration point. I think that's the key thing. It's like they miss being around like-minded people, buzzing off that energy, meeting new people, collaborating. But at the same survey told me that 79% of people don't want to go back to the office because they don't want the commute. So marrying those two is difficult. It's a real challenge because there's this desire to go back, but there's also this reticence to sit on the tube or sit on a bus or get on the train. So I think that there's this fine line, and I think this kind of suburban model is really interesting because you do build this community which is local to you. These are all people that live locally. They're neighbours. They can meet people within their own environment. And it then recultivates this community sort of almost internally. And I think it's been a really positive start for us. We have, other sites that are going to come live with a similar vein. And actually, I think complementing the city centre sort of CBD model, as well as having these kind of dispersed spaces for dispersed teams or individuals that they want to commute every day, I think that does feel like, you know, I'm not saying it is categorically the solution, but it definitely feels like a shift that is moving in that direction. And it's what people want to be able to do. And again, we've talked throughout this about flexibility in networks of spaces and different spaces for different reasons. It plays perfectly into that story.
Yeah, and I think on the working from home aspect, we've made it work because we've had to every day. Yeah. But in terms of the implications, that's long term of how businesses are run, it feels to me like it won't be quite as straightforward. Andrew, what's your crystal ball telling you?
Not sure so much this crystal ball, but so in Manchester we've got quite a large portfolio both in the city centre and then in the regional towns. And 6 weeks ago, as inquiries started to pick back up, the first market out of the 5 that we operate. So if you take Manchester as 2 markets in the centre, city centre, and the suburban towns, Birmingham, Liverpool, and Leeds city centres. The market that recovered quickest and fastest was the Manchester regional portfolio, the regional towns. The inquiries picked up quickest, the demand for viewings and the issue of proposals was the fastest in those markets. And that's not what was happening pre-COVID. No, pre-COVID, that would probably have been one of the quieter portfolios for us. Not inactive, but certainly more of the demand was that whole shift towards city centres and the need to consolidate a number of offices. So people in the past that had got regional offices were moving into the city centres and taking larger chunks of space in the cities. So it was interesting to see that that's where the market responded quickest to. We had a number of customers both in our portfolio and just generally looking in the market that was seeking large amounts of space in the city, and now we're going, actually what we're thinking about doing now is to split our operations and to have a mix of space closer to people's homes. They've got less of a need to commute into the cities. So there were a number of requirements that were looking for space in the outskirts of Manchester that were based on that having a split site operation, which is what that was not happening before COVID. So fortunately, the rest of the markets have now recovered, not to pre-COVID levels, but certainly back to a more healthy level. But yeah, it was just interesting to see how quickly that regional market did recover and is still pretty active. So I do think that hub and spoke approach is going to become part of people's portfolio mixes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And Justin, what's your thoughts on the future?
Well, I've got more a question actually for people like Andrew and Jonny, is whether there is an opportunity for flexible workspace operators with other sectors of the real estate industry. So for example, shopping centres, retail, we all know about the woes and the struggles that they're having. Interestingly, we've recently been contacted by 2 or 3 shopping centre owners looking at putting in some form of flexible working, and also things like the residential market, who increasingly, as people do work from home, are looking to provide facilities within their development. So I just wonder if that's an opportunity that will help foster the hub spoke model and make it easier for people to expand into regions.
Andrew,
it's really a question actually.
How does Justin get away from being on this panel and then ask questions? Yeah, no, so 6 months ago we bought 2 shopping centres in 2 town centres in the outskirts of Manchester, one in Stretford, one in Altrincham, and people go, well, you're crazy, no one's buying retail at the current time. We bought it in a joint venture with Trafford Borough Council, who we work quite closely with. But our rationale and our vision for doing so was to really to build on our desire to create communities within our space. So it wasn't a case of saying it's retail and it's always going to be retail. It's really to reconfigure that mix and to bring the life back into a number of the towns in the regions, which I guess lost their way to some extent. So Justin, just to go back to what you're saying, we are looking to repurpose some of the spaces that were and are currently retail space for a variety of mixed uses. So, be that residential, be that some degree of increased office element, and other uses as well, including more amenity use and schools, etc. So, that's what our vision is for a couple of these, to really create a community back in the heart of some of these towns where people want to live and work and play, and ensure that they all become vibrant places again. So, I don't know if that's quite answered your question, but that mix feels really.
No, but I think it's a great answer, because I genuinely think that, if we see more of those things happen in, I suppose, what we call the regions or the towns, then Jane, I think then there will be more of a demand for spoke. But interesting, Jonny talked about survey. I've just been on a call earlier with the British Property Federation, and there was a survey and a poll on that. And one of the things, and that was quite a young audience, and one of the things that came out of that survey about what people want from their working habits was they want a blend of working from home, but they also want to go to the office and collaborate. So I don't know well enough whether that means the spoke model will work. I don't know whether they want to go from their home to a spoke model. I guess they don't want to commute. So or are they happy to keep going to London or Manchester or wherever they are and have the right mix between working from home and going to the office?
Yeah, if I can just throw my hat into the ring, I think that's right. I think the mix is key. I think every survey seems to indicate it's 2 to 3 days locally, 2 to 3 days back in HQ. But I think sort of to your previous question as well, I think that the repurposing of department stores, shopping centres, retail, and spaces within residential developments is definitely something we were having several conversations with landlords prior to pandemic, and those conversations are continuing because there is, irrespective of anything, and I don't profess to be a retail expert at all, but retail is having its own struggles that we need to be wary of, and repositioning assets is key. I think what's really interesting is that landlords have an opportunity here to run things themselves, and it's all very well going to let the space to a co-working operator to go and run it separately, but actually what they want to do is create something with an identity that fits around the wider mix, and I guess to Andrew's point as well around building a community. You have to control all elements of that in order to make sure that the mix is right. So if it is a combination of retail and residential and office use, actually it all needs to be pretty symbiotic, and everyone needs the landlord needs to control the whole process that sits around that, and that goes all the way through to the technology that people interact with the space with. But landlords have an opportunity to offer the right products to their tenants here. This is something we've been sort of evangelizing on for some time, but I think this pandemic, hopefully, if there is some positive to cut some green shoots to come from it, is that actually I'm hopeful that landlords will start to look at buildings and assets and operations in a different way, and find a way of creating the right product for a local market or a CBD space as well. But start building out a community and start controlling and building a direct relationship with their customers, because I think that's something that they've foregone over the last few years, and sort of outsourced to an operator. Having control of that relationship, I think, is fundamental to creating the right environment.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I think that's possibly a good note to end on. Thank you to Andrew, Jonny, and Justin for persevering to make sure he could join us for this webinar. Our last webinar before we take a break with them in August is next Wednesday morning, and we'll be discussing with a real focus on technology, the role that can play in flexible workspaces as we adjust to the new normal, and that will be with representatives of 2 of our members, Convene and Smart Spaces, and details of that are on our website and to book for that there. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.